Well, hello and welcome back, everybody, to another live Google Hangout broadcast. You're joining me. I'm Joshua Carey with Pet Settingology for another solid event. This one is held exclusively for you, the attendees of the upcoming third annual Pet Settingology / Pet Tech Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, October 19th through the 22nd. Best price tickets still available at petsettinglive.com, but you all know that because you are already attending. So joining us today, we have Mr. Ryan Hanley. How are you today, sir?
Oh, it's great to be here, man. I'm glad. This is the third time we've gotten together here, so we've had like an epic discussion going. It's such a pleasure.
I like that recap because it certainly won't be the last. In part, you, Ryan, will be joining us live in Vegas to what I like to say is going to round out the trifecta, right? We have Marcus Sheridan, the sales lion. We have Jared Morris, copy blogger, and we have Ryan Hanley of Content Warfare TV, among a tremendous other line of credits, all building upon each other live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, and my first time in Vegas, so I'm very excited for that as well.
All right, so we'll have to keep Did I lose you there?
Just for a quick second, the worst part is you went right to your punchline, and that's when I lost you, like mid-punchline.
Ah, my life story, it seems. So, right, it's always about that mid-punchline. So today, we're going to be talking about SEO, yes, but more specifically, we're going to be focusing, everything we talk about today is going to be focusing on local SEO, which is, of course, part of the search engine optimization bigger picture, but there are very specific things you can and should be doing on your website to target that local market. And I know as pet business owners, many of us serve multiple areas and towns and locations, and one of the most popular questions I receive is, if I serve 4 surrounding towns, I want to show up when somebody does a search for each of those surrounding towns. So that's just one part of the whole, but everything we discuss is going to be focusing on local. So how would you like to get us going, Ryan, and orient us with just giving us the big picture of how to grasp local SEO?
Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that local website, Google wants to serve local websites. So the first thing I always come up against when I'm talking to people about local SEO is the idea that somehow a PetSmart or a Petco is going to outrank them. And yes, if you are not, in the first 2 episodes of our series here, we talked a lot about putting in the work, content marketing, types, kind of all that stuff. If you're not doing the work that you need to do, then yes, though you have a 3-page site and that's it, then yes, those mega carriers, big brand boxes, they will outrank you. Mm-hmm. But if you're even doing a little bit of work, you're just once a week getting a new article out there, getting a new video. I know you just put together a resource on how pet sitters can do video with their camera. Even if you're just doing small things like that, or their cell phone, you can outrank them because Google wants to serve local resources to local shoppers. So that right there, I just want to put that out. And how do I know that? My history, for anyone who's coming across me for the very first time.
Yeah, let's do it.
For the last 7 years, I have worked doing both as sales and digital marketing, and then as I got more proficient at digital marketing, just digital marketing for an independent insurance agency. So we have to deal with Geico, State Farm, Allstate, Nationwide, all these mega brands. And we were, for some of the highest rated keywords, Albany was the town that I was in, Albany, New York, for Albany auto insurance, Albany home, Albany business insurance, Albany workers comp, prime time keywords for our business for more than 2 years. The last 2 years that I was there, we were ranked in the top 3 for all 4 of those terms. Wow. So, and that's outranking Travelers Insurance, Hartford Insurance, mega brands that put a lot of money into this stuff. Because we were a local carrier for our local market, we would outrank them. So,
right. So if I can, Ryan, let me just reiterate that for everybody watching today. What Ryan does and has done for years is he for the insurance agency market. He does what I do with pet sitters. So he deals with independent insurance agents who are trying to grow their independent insurance agency. And like he says, he has to get them to rank locally. He has to get them to optimize their website so they can outbeat your Geicos, etc. So
Yeah.
really cool backstory.
Yeah, so I just want to let that's the first thing I like to just lay the groundwork of. This is possible. This isn't something like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to have the time. We're going to talk about, with local SEO, it really is just about being dedicated to a set of practices, right? Not necessarily tricks and stuff like that. That kind of stuff has gone the way of Penguin and Panda updates to search engines. If you're unfamiliar with those, basically they're just the names for different changes in Google's search engine. But as these new kind of advanced types of search have come out, all the little tricks that used to make it impossible to rank are gone. And really it's come back to just a set of principles that you do over and over and over again with every blog post. And if you adhere to them, and we're going to discuss them all today, then you can search. So let's start right at the top. And this is the one that drives me freaking crazy. And it's not having your phone number and your address on every page of your site. This is an incredibly easy thing to do. If you're working with Pet Sittingology for your website, then you know that in either the footer or the header, there are places that you can place your phone number and your address so that on every single page, someone can find them, both as a user and the little search engine bots that are crawling into these pages can see them as well. So they're seeing your homepage with a phone number and address. They're seeing a blog post that you create with a phone number and address. They're seeing your contact us page, phone number and address. And that is a very small thing. But what it does is it says, okay, we have 35 pages on our site. And Google sees that every single one of those pages has the same business name, same address, and same phone number. You have immediately set yourself above everyone else, because so many websites don't have that, because the consistency tells Google this is an accurate address, an accurate phone number for this business name. And that's step number one. Just make sure your phone number and your address are on every page.
Right. So let me ask you this, because the websites that I create for pet sitters and my clients do have the space in the footer where they can and should put their phone number and address. Now, the phone number, I think, at least in our business, is, I would say 99.9% of the people have a phone number on their site. But the address, I've heard a little mixed feelings about. Help me understand. What if somebody says, A, I don't feel comfortable putting my address on the page, and B, why is having my address so important if I don't serve clients at my house? I serve them at their house.
Okay. So, and an excellent question.
Right.
If you're uncomfortable with using your address, then I would consider going to like a Mailbox, etc., or something like that, and buying for, I think that's like $100 for the year, a mailbox that has a street address and like a postal code on it. Now you can have a street address in your town that's not your home. So that would be how I would get away from the idea of having your home address, because I get that, right? Like, I have my own business, Hanley Media Lab, and even though I work for other companies, I do have my own business that I sometimes do business work for. I don't want people knowing where I live, so I actually have a local mailbox place that's 3 miles from my house, and if you send me mail through my business, through my site, it goes there. It doesn't come to my home. So I'm still telling Google this is one of the towns, at least one of the towns that I want to rank for. In my case, it would be Albany, New York, but I'm not giving them my exact location because I don't want people coming to my home. Not that anyone ever would, but I don't want to give that away. So 3 miles away is fine. So that is how I would dispel that. The reason it's important to have it on there is because that is going to be your primary location of business. We're going to teach you how to rank for other places in a couple minutes, but you want to give Google a home base. Otherwise, and this is really the important part, is that little red arrow that points on maps. If you don't have a solid location on your site let's say you have a couple different addresses. I've seen that before. That's not crazy. A couple different addresses that aren't actual locations that you want to do business in. You don't get a arrow, or maybe the arrow points in the wrong spot, or maybe it points at Albany, Georgia, and not Albany, New York, because I never referenced Albany, NY in any one of my web pages. So Google doesn't know if I'm an Albany, NY business or an Albany, Georgia, or an Albany, Oregon business, which, until I learned this lesson, actually used to happen. So this is 100% out of experience. Before I knew what I'm telling you right now, I just would say Albany Auto Insurance. Well, there's 3 major Albanys in the United States, and I would get calls from the other 2 places that we couldn't write insurance because I didn't know to put, or I just didn't think to put Albany, NY. And it seems like a simple thing, but really it's incredibly powerful.
All right, let me ask you this though, because I know that you said the mailboxes, etc., or even like the UPS store for an address on your website. But I've heard that for the Google Local or your Google Plus profile page or whatever it is now, the overriding that gets you into those local results, I heard that Google is cracking down on those and really doesn't want you putting that there for your location.
They don't. So it's a business decision that you have to make. Like, you will lose if you do that method. So for me, local SEO doesn't matter. Okay, so my business decision was that's what I'm going to do. For a pet sitting business, if I had a pet sitting business or I had any other business where I really wanted to show up in local search, I would use my home address. But the question you had asked is, what if people are worried about the home address? So that would be my solution. My advice is, no one's probably going to come to your house and break in because your address is on there. There's a lot of addresses, and I'm sure you're listed on white pages whether you put yourself in there or not. So the good thing is, what if, or I shouldn't say the good thing, but what if one of your clients wants to drop their pet off? So normally you go out to their houses, but for some reason they call you and they say, hey, we're going out of town. Can you do a special thing where I keep the dog at your house? And you're like, okay, I don't normally do that, but I'm going to do that for this client because I like them. They get halfway to your house and they forget where you live, or they realize they misplaced the directions. They pick up the phone to call you. You don't pick up. The next solution is going to the cell phone and finding out where you are. And this seems like a silly thing, and you're like, oh, Ryan, that would never happen. But think about that one time that it does, and that guy who's driving his dog to your house says, geez, that's kind of odd. Like, how am I, like, what, now question, and I'm telling you, this seems like a little tiny thing, and you're like, Ryan, this is a one-off scenario, but these little things creep into people's consciousness. And you know, I think that if you run your business out of your home, the whole like identity stealing, someone's gonna break in kind of thing, like, there are too many other places where your address is online for your business being the reason that they do that.
Exactly. So the idea is, we have a question here from Laura, great question, while we're talking about this, saying that your address needs to be either in the header somewhere or the footer somewhere, your full address, so it can reference Google every time they see your site and take it back to their home base. Does it need to be your full address, 123 Main Street, or can it just be city, state?
If you want an accurate location on the map, so well, we can do a screen share in a minute, and we'll show you when the location stuff comes up. But when you do the search and you see those 10 local listings or 7 local listings that come up, if you want that, you have to have a full accurate address, and it needs to be consistent across all the major directories. So we weren't actually going to go there, and I want to circle back, but because I just mentioned the local directories, I'm going to bring up Yext. Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay.
Let's take this conversation organically.
Okay, so Yext is a tool, yext.com, Y-E-X-T, and I'm apologizing if anyone's asking questions. For some reason, my Webinar Jam comment tracker is not working, so I can't see the comments.
I got you. I got you covered. I got it.
So YEXT is one particular service out of a bunch, and I'll tell you what they do. I've used 3 of them now, and Yext is the one I found to be the best, so that's what I'm going to talk about. But essentially what these services do is there are upwards of 500 local listing directories online. White Pages is a big familiar one. Yellow Pages is a big familiar one. Local something, localcity.com, citysearch.com, all these directories. Okay. So they randomly pull your information from whatever database they pull it from. They all pull them from, some are the same, some are different. So here's what happened to the Murray Group, which is the agency that I worked for.
Right, and I just want to say that you just mentioned that whether you want it, ask for it, or like it or not,
it's there.
Business, right? Like hundreds of directories, your business is there. So, so the Murray Group is your insurance agency, yeah.
And we started getting phone calls from people going, your phone number is wrong. Your phone number is wrong. And I'm going nuts because I'm looking through the site. I'm doing search. I got SEO mods. I'm digging into this. I can't figure out where it's wrong. It's driving me crazy. Finally, one of the people on the I tell there's a few ladies who take phone calls in our office. I said, next person that says that, ask them where they're seeing it. Whitepages.com, a major directory, had our number 465 instead of 456. I have no idea where they pulled it from. Okay, so a major directory that people use to find businesses has our phone number incorrect in it. And it is a pain in the butt to try to go in and get it changed. So what a service like Yext does is it takes all the major directories, and you can go, there's like 90 major ones, and then there's all these different levels. You can reach out to all of them. I think for like $500 one time, you get all the directories. And what they do is they go in and they verify that your name is accurately spelled, your address is accurate, your phone number is all your information is accurate, that your website is listed on all of them with a hot link back to your site. So now we're talking a little deeper SEO kind of thing we'll get into in a minute. But the major thing is that Google uses or compares the accuracy of these different directories for your local listing. So it says, okay, the website is 123 Main Street, Albany, New York. Whitepages.com is 123 Main Street. City Search is 123. Okay, we agree. We've cross-referenced enough sources that Johnny's Pet Sitters is located at 123 Main Street in Albany, New York. Bam, put it on the map, start serving it in search when people search in that area, because now they've said that all these things are similar. If your phone number has maybe some of the directories only have your local digits, not your area code. Maybe a number is misspelled. Maybe there's a comma in your address where it shouldn't be. These little silly things keep you off of that map and keep you from being served as often as you should be, because Google can't, with accuracy, verify that that's your address and that you're in business.
So Yext is a very important thing, a very important part of the whole to make sure is on track. Let me ask you this. Taking it even back a step, we have pet sitters who are not even there yet, let's say. Let's say I'm a pet sitter and I want to be able to show up in Google Local, that 7 to 10 map section in their results. Do I have to do anything? Can I do anything? Is this now tied into the Google Plus account? Is there a form I fill out? Do I just sit back and do these things and hope for the best? What action can I take to make sure that I'm going to show up in those Google Local map results?
I like the just pray method. That's definitely that's my recommended. We're just please Google Gods. So really the keys are consistency on your page, consistency in the directories, and having all these things be consistent. And then the last step is really the Google Local page, which we talked in part about, I think, in episode, or I say episode, but
that's fine. Yeah, you're good.
Our second talk that we had, we talked a little bit about that, and we can go back there today. We are going to go back there and talk a little bit about that. But you have a Google Local page by default. You want to log in, claim it, which is really just, if you haven't claimed it yet. If it's not there, like you relatively new, or just you haven't put any information online, so it has no way of catching you, you want to create it. either way, go there, either claim it, which is clicking a button, you verify through mail, I think, and then you're good, or create it, and then fill that out in its entirety, right? Don't do 3 fields and be like, oh, I'm too busy, I have to go on to something else. Take your time and fill it out. It's not a ton of information. It's your address, your phone number, maybe an image or something, you walking, a couple animals, and some basic information about your business, a link back to your site. And now Google Local plus what's on your page plus all these directories, and it's really baseline form. Those are kind of the 3 entities that give Google the verification that this is a site. So before you go to the directories, I would make sure your site looks great. After your site is set up properly, I would go to Google Local. After you have Google Local and your site matching, all the information matches, the address and the phone number look the same, then I would reach out to, go and start doing the directory thing and making sure they all look the same. And if you just did those 3 things and nothing else that we talk about today, you would have a really solid foundation for local search.
And when you're talking about your Google Local page, is that in fact these days the same as your Google Plus business page?
Yep, it's the same thing.
Right, the Google. So I just want to make that clear for everybody.
Yeah,
the page we're talking about, we've spoken in length, and we will continue to chat about Google Plus. So you have your personal Google Plus profile page, and then we always talk about your Google Plus business page, which you can actually create multiple business contend with. So and fill out exactly what Ryan is talking about. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yep. It's the about page of your Google Plus business page is Google Local now.
Right, and again, you just want to make sure that your address on every page of your footer or your header on your website and your phone number match all these things. Put them together. Try to go to yext, yext.com, and see what program, what level of service makes sense for you, and connect the dots, and you'll be ahead of the game. So that's a good first step. What do we want to get into now? How to target content specific to local on your website?
Yeah, the last point I want to make, and we beat it up, is just make sure that your phone number and your address are consistent, right?
Let me ask you, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Don't do like 123 Main Street and then do ST dot on one place and then spell it out. Like, just simple things. Just if you're going to spell it out everywhere. It doesn't matter. There's no like bonus to ST dot or to typing out street. Just be consistent with it, because that consistency is really where Google starts to apply authority. So just be consistent. Okay.
Let me ask you a weird question that just popped into my head.
I love weird questions.
What if my phone number is 212-732-PETS?
So that's cool. What I would do is have that as an image, right? And then underneath it, in actual text that Google can read the numbers, because that's all great, but a lot of cell phones these days don't have the letters on them anymore. You have to like hit an extra button to get to the letters. So I would put both on there.
I literally discovered that last week. I was on my phone. I saw some phone number that I wanted to dial, and the last 4 digits were letters. And I was like, okay, and then I noticed that the iPhone doesn't have the letters. So I literally had to go to Google, type in, and that took me like 5 minutes to figure out what the search term to figure out, hey, give me the letters above each number. And,
so annoying.
The things we do.
Well, it's funny. That was an awesome strategy back when every phone had the letters on them. Now, how much, we just gave the two of us both just showed frustration with that. So it's like, I think it's cool. I think because when you're talking to somebody, it does make sense to say, hey, just call 1-800, walk pet or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when on your site, you want to also include the numbers. And when you do that, don't make sure the numbers are actual text on the page that Google can read and not an image. So a lot of times people will just put an image. They'll type the text and then they'll just copy and paste in an image or something like that if they have a weird font that they want to include, like the pets is all spelled out, and to make it look cool, which is great for branding, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but make sure that the actual numbers for purposes of search and having your phone number show up in search and stuff like that, that you can actually read those.
Right, and while we're on this topic specifically, before we get into that next section right now, what about the idea where if I'm sitting here in my local hometown and I'm looking for a dog walker and I'm in Brick, New Jersey, so if I go to Google and I don't type in Brick dog walker, but I just type in dog walker, that's going to give me local results by default.
Absolutely.
Because of all the weird things Google is able to do. First of all, they're able to predetermine where I am, and because I ask for dog walker, so from the search user, my change, everything we're talking about is still relevant to the end user, the pet sitter, who wants to optimize for local, right?
Yeah, so there was a time when the person would have to put in New Jersey or Albany or whatever the town is in the thing. That day has come and gone. Now you just have to put in, searchers only have to put in the thing. So if you're properly, so this is one of the things with keyword research, right? And why we're not going to spend a ton of time on keyword research today, because not that I don't think keyword research is important, but it has lost some of its value because if I'm ranking for Albany auto insurance, that's great, but really it doesn't tell me the full story, because people who search for auto insurance in Albany are also going to find me, because their IP address, the thing that tells Google where their computer is actually located physically, Google's pulling off of that. So the things that we're doing that we're talking about are going to work for people who are putting in locally branded term and the thing they want, and just the thing they want.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said,
or whatever.
Right, and I'm so glad you said we're not going to focus a lot of time on keyword research, because you referenced earlier that video I did yesterday on the iPhone, and I mentioned that forget about keyword research out of the gate for the moment. There are so many other steps today. Yeah, a year ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, keyword research was all you needed to master first. But Google, as they always do every so often, they realize that people have abused that algorithm, that signal that they use, and figured out all these shortcut ways to vet their system that they including today. It's like, forget keyword research. You do everything we're talking about here and in all the videos prior, and not even consider keyword research, you're going to be miles ahead of the game. So again, just don't get caught up in keyword research in and of itself.
Yep. So another big one, and this is, I'm going to pitch the Pet Sittingology website system as often as I can, because I have looked through the websites that Josh creates and I like them a lot. And here's one of the reasons, is that something that Google is really starting to take into account today is the actual usability and functionality of a website. So let me explain to you what it means. What that means is that, let's say I come to Pet Sittingology and I'm looking for a pet sitting website that I want to have my pet sitting website designed, and I'm looking for providers, and I'm considering Pet Sittingology as one of the providers. So I come there, I type in pet sitting website, keyword term that I'm sure Josh is going for. He pops up with 3 of his other vendors. The first vendor you pop into, you look around and you're immediately like, oh, this just doesn't feel right, back button. The second vendor, you go in, you search around, you're like, maybe you click on one more page, be like, this doesn't feel right either, back button. The next one you come in, and bam, you're smacked right in the face with a piece of information you really like. You click through and you're reading it, like, okay, this makes sense. I could probably implement this. Okay, I'm going to go to his About page and find out a little bit more about Pet Sittingology. And then that takes me to one of the posts that he has that, like, must-read posts. So that takes me to another. So now I'm 4, 5, 6 pages into this site, and that tells Google that really, so Josh's site, Pet Sittingology, was third based on the users coming to that site, spending time, clicking around. It's a functional site. It makes sense visually to people. The information is relevant. He starts to jump up the rankings because what Google is capturing is bounce rate, which is the number of people who hit a page and immediately hit the back button. That's bad. You want people to stay. 2, time on site, pages, are people taking action? These are all things that Google tracks. They're human indicators, okay? So the reason that I'm putting emphasis on this is because today, design and value, the value you provide in the terms of resources like how to properly fit your pet, so we're going to talk a little bit about, so this is a content thing, how to properly fit your pet for a harness, right? That's an article that you could write. And someone comes to your site and they're looking for a pet sitter and they see that article and they're like, geez, I was fiddling, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's something I was thinking about the other day as I'm trying to fit my dog for a harness, and it's like, man, me and my wife were thinking about that the other day, and I click through and it takes me 2 or 3 minutes to read the article, and I'm like, wow, that's really good. Like that's a piece of information that I needed. I've now spent 4 or 5 minutes on your site. That tells Google that anytime anybody searches for Albany pet sitting, like I did, that your site needs to be served higher, because when people go to it, they actually get the information they need. The way I'm describing it sounds a little convoluted, but what really breaks down to is user experience and the value that you're creating with content have even more emphasis today than they ever have before, because they're actually being used as ranking factors in search engines.
Right. So getting into the content aspect of it, we spoke about how to make sure that your phone number and address match up with all the other elements that Google wants to see. Now we're getting into articles, blogging, creating content, even your non-blog pages, which I've spoken about recently. How do we begin to focus on the local aspect, least of which is if I want to rank for 4 different cities or 4 different areas in my service area?
Yeah. So there's 2 pieces to this. There's the piece where actually goes into the content, and there's the piece of what that piece of content actually looks like in search results. And we're going to start with what that piece of information actually looks like in search results, and we're going to work our way back into the content.
Perfect. Okay? Yeah.
So when you look at a search engine result, you get a bolded, usually blue headline. Then underneath it, you get something called a meta description. Pretty standard. Google has redacted a lot of the other information that they put in there, like authorship and stuff like that. We would have talked about that, but they've taken that out. So think about it as title, meta description. You want to make that look and whatever question that piece of content is answering, you want that meta description to convey that information. So if you are in the Albany area and you do pet sitting, and you want this particular article to rank for the terms Albany and pet sitting, you have to use the words, surprisingly, Albany and pet sitting in the title. Not just for ranking factors, but also because if I put Albany and pet sitting in the search bar and I don't see Albany and pet sitting in the title of your post, I'm not going to click on the link. So this is pet peeve, like to the nth degree for me, is cheeky, funny, like all the adjectives.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
leaving me like, you tell the people exactly what they're gonna get.
Well, I was just going to say, this ties into our good friend Marcus Sheridan, who says Google doesn't have a sense of humor. They don't understand that. So just put in what it is.
Yeah. Like if you're the pet sitting comedian, then you want to do that, right? Because people will come to you and they want to hear you, and that's different. But
I want to buy the petsittingcomedian.com, have you hire me not only to walk your dog, but I'll tell you a few jokes.
Yeah, it's funny jokes too, which actually is a great shtick, and you'd probably do really well too, especially if you like put jokes as like banners on the dogs as you're walking them through town. So getting back into, we'll take the train off the rails and put it back on. so unless you're something, you have some weird shtick that people are coming back for, like Seth Godin, right? Marketing savant. If you're unfamiliar with him, he's been around forever. He's incredibly intelligent. If you're in the marketing industry, you know Seth Godin. So you don't have to, but if you're in the marketing, he can write whatever post title he wants because 500,000 people are subscribed to his blog and don't care what the post title is because no one searches for a specific post. They just want him. That's the only scenario where you can write strange and obscure post titles. All the rest of us have to create post titles that tell people exactly what the thing is that they're going to get when they click through. So if you're writing an article about Albany pet sitting, use those words. If you're writing a post about how to properly fit a dog for its harness, make sure the post title is how to properly fit your dog for a harness or some variation of those words, so that fitting and harness, which are probably the major words that someone would put into the search engine, show up in the title of the post. Okay, so that we beat that up. The next is the meta description, where the title of the post is actually used in ranking. The meta description is not. So this is the little blurb of text that's smaller. Sometimes it's gray or black. It's more obscure than the post title. This is where about 156 characters, I think you get, somewhere around 157. You also want to use those words in there, but they have no ranking. So you don't just want to put like how to fit your dog for harness, how to fit your dog for over and over again.
Right, exactly.
Like, you can't keyword stuff this. This is 100% just for usability. So in there you want to put struggling to fit your dog for a harness. Learn the 5 techniques to properly fitting your dog for a harness. Click here, ... Okay? Or you can put call for more and your phone number, because I highly recommend all local businesses put their phone number in a meta description. But the reason you do that is because when someone puts a search term in the search bar, even though the meta description is not used for ranking, it highlights in the meta description when that word is used. So it's drawing people's eyes to that piece of content. So if they see the word in the title and they see it in the meta description and it's highlighted by Google, they're like, wow, this post looks like something that may actually give me some value. I'm going to click through, and you've accomplished your goal. Before we move on to the actual content, I want to go back to the phone number in the meta description for a second. So Google's been around for more than a decade now. They've become they've worked very hard on increasing the quality of their search results, and in many aspects, Google has completely integrated themselves into our lives. 70% of the phone market is Android. I mean, I use an iPhone, but I put, if I wasn't so invested at this point into Apple, I probably would have went with an Android. In many cases, probably a better product.
And invested into the bills, apparently.
Yes, yeah, everyone saw that.
I did.
My OtterBox Bills case. So, so people trust Google, and they trust the search results. Huge implications of this. There have been some studies done finding that many searchers we're beginning to believe Google so much that we aren't clicking through to websites anymore. If you're showing up in the top 3 search results, consumers are actually, and you have your phone number in there, a way to be contacted in there, or you show up in the knowledge graph, which people from the second episode of our talk know is all that additional information which can be added to a search result. But if you have your contact information in that search result, people are calling right out of the search results. They type in Albany Pet Sitter, and I see the second result. I like the name of the business, or it seems like it's close to me, and I see the phone number right in the boop. I'm just calling. I don't need to click through.
Right, and this sort of,
and I'm assuming Google is serving me good pet sitters.
Exactly, and this is also should alleviate, because in the recent past, I've heard from a lot of pet sitters the frustration, like you'll get a potential client on the phone and they're going to start asking you questions that you believe are already answered on your website. Now, for the record, even if that is the case, you have to understand and assume nobody is reading practically anything we put out there. You know, I say that with a very little tongue in cheek, but also now more than ever, like Ryan said, they may literally not have even gotten to your website.
Yeah. So this is the thing. First of all, if people are calling you and you're giving them any kind of blowback because you think that they should already know the answer to that, that is a business practice that I know I'm not a business coach, but that's probably not a good business practice. Like, I would be happy that they called and answered all their questions with a smile and a happy voice. But really, to get down to it, is people assume that Google knows what's best. And if you're in the top 3 results and they serve and you're served and they feel comfortable with the result, they're going to pick up the phone and call right out of the search results because they don't need to click through, right? And why do you care if they click through? If you're getting them on the phone, now you got to become the salesman and close the deal. That's
and
your goal.
Yeah, and let me just reiterate for a minute what we're talking about here. Landing in the top 3 spots or even on that top first page, that's the goal, right? That's what we all want. And this is what I say. In order to get there, like Ryan just said, whatever we're searching for, we are all trained to say whatever Google is showing us high in the search results, we already trust.
Yep.
So what does this mean? That Google has a continued huge responsibility to make certain that whatever they are putting on that first page, whatever they are recommending, Google is saying, hello, search user, you're looking for this search. I am going to tell you that these 10 results are the best of the billions of, literally, of other web pages out there. Trust me, because we've already developed this relationship, and I am not going to steer you wrong because I am Google and I have gained your trust over time, and you continue to come back to me over and over again for all of your search needs, and it's a wonderful relationship. So what am I getting at? That in order to get in Google's good graces, they need to know and feel confident that you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, are the best, the brightest, the most significant and relevant result for their client, who is the search user. So only when you put in the effort and you do all, and it's very little effort, when you do all this successfully and you have a good-looking website that Google can see, that Google can understand, and that your users are interacting with, like Ryan said earlier, when your users are spending time on your site and consuming your site and clicking your site and not going back to Google inadvertently saying, nah, thanks, but no thanks. That really didn't give me the answer. So when you do all these things, Google's going to say, hey, Miss Pet Sitting Website, we like you. We know you're good. Our clients, the search user, continue to tell us you're good every time we show you. So now you're going to be Google's best friend by following all these steps.
And here's how you take it a step further. So Google, you trust Google, right? We trust Google. If you're on that first page, you're in the conversation. Something we haven't talked about yet is customer reviews. So Google reviews. We beat up last time the fact that we all hate Yelp, and there's various reasons that we hate Yelp, and I would focus my attention on Google reviews.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So Google reviews, all you need to do is send them to the About page for your Google Plus About page, your business page for your Google Plus, about the About section. Send them to that page, and there's a button. They can leave a review. It's very easy for them to do. So the Murray Group, I think, has 30, at least the last time I checked, it was 30 5-star reviews. So when you search for the Murray Group or certain terms that are keyword related, our search result comes up, and then 5 stars and the number of customer reviews. So now, think about this. Now I have the name of my business, what I do, my phone number, served on the first page of Google with 7, 10, 30, 100 customer reviews saying this is a business that I recommend. That's when the leads start coming in, because now you've given that searcher so much social proof Google says that you're good because you're on the first page. Consumers say you're good because you've given them 5 stars. And then you're saying you're good by providing them with accurate information that describes what you do and a way to get in contact with them. They'll have no need to click through to your site. They'll just pick up the phone. Now, some will. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, we're saying a percentage, but enough that it makes it worthwhile. And plus, if they do click through, by giving them that good first look, you are, they have a good, solid impression when they get to your site because you've already shown them so much good information. So they land on your site thinking to themselves, wow, these guys have 35-star reviews. They immediately take your site more serious.
I need to reiterate this one fact, which to me is worth this entire thing as weight in gold. Elaine sent me a few questions, and one of them she said, Google Plus, I need to jump on this, but don't understand how to set it up, how to use it, and how to tell my clients to leave me reviews there. That's the piece. And I know that this is something that we all struggle with, but my goodness, I never put 2 and 2 together to realize, is it that simple? What Ryan said was, in order to send people to your Google Plus page to leave you a Google review, is to send them to the About page of your Google Plus profile. Is that really it?
Yeah, so here's a super easy way to do it, right? Because your Google Plus profile, your Google Plus business page, About page, so there's a lot of pages in there, but is a long URL that is kind of, you can create it, you can copy and paste a link, but it's kind of long and annoying. What I would do is just take your branded URL that you have, johnnyspetsitters.com, and just do a simple
thepetsittingcomedian.com.
Yeah. So the petsittingcomedian.com, and just create a page. It could be titled G+. That's it. G+ review, or just review. That could be it. And just redirect it. Very easy to do. This might be a great piece of content, Josh, for you to put on Pet Sittingology. How to do a redirect. Simple. If you're on WordPress, it's literally 3 clicks. And you just redirect a page on your site to your About page of your Google Plus profile. So then all you need to say is go to thepetsittingcomedian.com/review, and that's how you leave me a review. Simple, easy to remember. You can stick it in emails. Like at the Murray Group, the way that we used to get reviews was just someone would email us with a good, hey, thanks guys, I really appreciate it. And we would email them back a link. Hey, do you mind just telling us that on Google? It really helps our search. I'm telling you, people have no problem doing this. If you don't have Google reviews, that's on, and I don't mean this to be harsh, but that's on you. That's not on your clients. Your clients are more than willing to give you reviews. If you do a good job for them, they want to support you. Like, you shouldn't feel like, oh, well, they're paying me, so they shouldn't have to give me a review. Screw that. If you do a good job for them, these people not only should feel obligated, they want to leave you a review if you do a good job for them. So just, hey Steve, it was such a pleasure walking, Alf the other day. Like, could you leave me a review on Google? It really helps my business, helps me show up in search. Steve is going to do that, he's going to have no problem doing that for you. It's a very simple, easy thing, and by creating that short URL, it doesn't look weird. It's easy for you to remember as a business, and that's how I would do it.
Let me ask you this question. What is your specific take on WordPress SEO plugins? Of course, the 2 popular, we have the all-in-one SEO plugin, and then we have the SEO by Yoast or Yoast plugin.
Yoast, yeah. I'm a Yoast guy, diehard Yoast guy.
Right. So so everything we're talking about, that could be and should be part of the basis, because whenever you create a new page or a new post, it of course gives you that green light to strive for based on a focus keyword of your choosing. But then also on the bottom, it gives you the option to adjust any title tag and to insert the meta description there too. So do you suggest that, for the sake 100%. Of this conversation, that every pet sitter, for every page, every piece of content going forward, they take that to heart?
Yeah, it really helps. And then the cool thing about that WordPress plugin, and it's free, by the way, is that not only does it give you kind of the dummy-proof titles, keyword, meta description, it also has another tab that you can click on that then says, hey, you didn't use your keyword in a subheading. Maybe you want to consider that if it makes sense. You did not link to an external resource. Maybe you want to consider doing that. So it gives you some suggestions on ways that you can increase the authority of the page as well. And another good thing is for $69, there is an extension to the Yoast plugin called Local SEO, which adds, we didn't talk about this because it's way geeky, but there's something called schema data, which is essentially like it applies some tags, and I don't want everyone to think I'm dropping into ones and zeros here. It applies some tags to certain pieces of information, like your phone number and like your address, that makes it very easy. It's like putting a billboard on your address for Google to say, here's the local address, this is the way it should look, this is how it should be served in search, and it's $69 one time. If you use Yoast SEO, which is free, which is the big one, this is a nice, simple extension that people can buy, and it helps, basically put a billboard on the fact that I'm a local business, and this is the information that I want Google to use for serving my information. So I use that on the Murray Group site as well. I highly recommend it.
Right. To target a variety of towns or services that you target, that you serve. What is the overriding technique that I should follow? What's the template there?
So one cool thing about that plugin, just because I just mentioned that, is that it does allow you to add multiple addresses and stuff. So that will, one small piece, that will help you. The other piece is you want to create pages that talk about the fact that you serve those local communities. So if you're based in Albany, but you're also willing to work in Troy, then you need to tell Google by putting something with willing to work at Troy is a town near Albany.
Yeah.
That you're willing to work there, and that, blah, 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 blah. Hey, when I go to Troy and I work with my Troy clients, we walk in the antique district, and I like to walk them there because there's plenty of big, huge sidewalks and fire hydrants for the dogs to communicate on, and all of that kind of stuff. So serving other areas is as easy as creating pages that are dedicated to that town and saying to them, hey, look, we serve these areas.
Right. Yeah, go ahead if you have. Yeah.
So the only thing is, like, let's do you have multiple locations. So not just I serve these areas around, but I have actual multiple locations. I know that's probably not the case for the vast majority of pet sitters, but if it was, then you essentially would make sure that you have your headquarters, and then your about page has listed all your and your contact pages, all your addresses on it. So you want a page that lists all the addresses, and then like a thing like Yext, you want to make sure that all those locations are in the directories, and that your Google local page, you want to make sure your headquarters has a page, and that you're listing your other addresses in there. And Google will make those connections, but you always want to run it off your headquarters, because if you get involved with like confusing Google as to which is your main location, there can be some problems with that. And to be honest with you, at that level, I would have to refer you out for local at a certain point, because it starts to get a little confusing. But for the vast majority of people, they just have the one location, so they don't have to worry about it.
Right, and serving multiple towns, just to reiterate, you have to create unique pieces of content. One trap I see occasionally is somebody will serve 4 different towns and create 4 different pages and only change the name of the town among all of the pieces of content. That's not good. Google recognizes that. Google understands what's happening. And why don't they like that? Because it doesn't add value to the user. And that's all Google is concerned about, pleasing their client, their
Yeah.
user, the searcher. So if the searcher is coming to your site and sees 4 duplicate pages of 4 different towns, and the only different thing is you have 5 paragraphs talking about how you serve this town, and the only thing that's different is the name of the town, that doesn't do you any good. So what would do the searcher, the potential client, good? Create original, unique pieces of content around these different towns. So talk about a story regarding a specific client in that town. Talk about the dog parks or the dog-friendly places to go in that town. Talk about the real estate or the apartment buildings in that town and how you serve them and what those workers can do while they're at work specific to that town. There are so many things. Talk about a review that you got from a client in that town. Interview a favorite client. Ask them 3 to 5 questions. Have them send it back to you. Post that about that town. So there are so many ways you can make it town specific. I've heard people say when I tell them this, oh, but this town doesn't have any dog parks or doesn't have any dog-friendly areas. Well, guess what? Talk about that then. Say, many people out of the gate think that brick is not dog friendly. So yeah, while we might not have any dog friendly parks, here are 5 things to do with your dog on a lovely Saturday afternoon. Something's got to be able to do with your dog for that town, right?
Yeah, basically write as if that's where you're headquartered. So if you have one where you're headquartered and then you have 5 kind of satellite towns that you serve, just take a week and say, okay, this week I'm going to write a post as if I was located in town A. And this week I'm going to write a post as if I was located in town B. And write what you think you would write about as if your actual address was in that town. And, that'll help you a little bit. But I agree, everything you just said, those are all amazing pieces of content and exactly what people should be doing. I mean, and look, all those pieces of content don't need to be done tomorrow. Take that list, rewatch that section 5 times, write all those things down, and say, okay, I'm going to take this one this day, this one the next week, and just start to go through them. And over time, Google will start to realize if you keep hitting them. Now, you can't just write one post and then 2 years later be like, wow, I'm not ranking there, and you haven't created a post in 2 years. Like, you have to continue to tell Google on a semi-regular basis that, hey, I serve this geographical region. Otherwise, they'll assume you don't, because people don't write about places that they don't work. So if you have to think about it that way. Like, I know that search engines test our common sense to the nth degree, right? Like, if Google assumes that if you're not writing about a certain area, that you don't work there. So you can't be like, how come I don't rank for this area if you're not creating content for it? I mean, that's basically it. And it sounds intuitive once you think about it, but I think before we kind of think about it that way, we're like, oh, geez, like, I do business there. Like, how come I'm not ranking there? You haven't told Google that you do business there. Otherwise, they have no other way of knowing.
Exactly. So before we enter the next and perhaps final segment, do you want to? Should we now go to a few of the websites and just give some? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good next step here.
All right, we got some good submissions. You want to share your screen? You have the links there?
I do. Let's see here. Screen share. Okay. So
let's see what we got.
There's your mug right there. Wags and purrs, everyone can see that?
We sure can.
All right. So, as we were talking about before, I actually, in a lot of ways, I like this. But let's talk about a few. We're going to talk about SEO wise, and I don't want Michelle to think in any way that this is a knock on her, the work she's doing, because I think that this is a very well done site, right? This is not. These are nitpicky things to optimize your site as well as it could possibly be done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first one is kind of a usability thing, and it's the first thing I noticed when I went to this site. And I like the fact that you're using the white space, right? And by that I mean there's not a ton of different colors and there's not a ton of lines. But it is really hard to delineate this section from this slider section. It kind of feels a little confusing and a little
constricting?
Yeah, it just feels a little kind of there's just a lot going on. And the other part is that sliders are like conversion killers. It just, things moving, people start to read something and then it changes. It really kind of bugs them. A lot of businesses have them, but just know that statistically, people who visit websites hate sliders.
Right, and I just want to pop in for 1 second here. And what Ryan's talking about might on the surface look like a design element feedback, but this is SEO on every level, because it goes back to the user experience and the usability. So the better that your user can interact and use your website, the more that's going to report to Google, and that's going to directly affect SEO. So anytime he or I give feedback where it looks like, oh, well, that's a design element, that is directly SEO related.
Yeah. And plus, like these links, they don't really, it's hard for Google to read these links in a slider. So even though you have do the Toki Pokey, which I see as pet trading cards, and I'm assuming people search for Toki Pokey cards, and maybe a good way for you to drive traffic, by having them in this slider, Google can't actually get to those links and index them as easily. So it does take away from some of the real technical side of it too. So that was just the first thing. It's a small thing. I like the purple. I like the limited colors. I like how you have this nice, consistent brand down through. So that was the first thing. I like how you have testimonials. Again, we're talking the social proof, the usability side. Total trust doesn't say, like, so I may put on here that these are testimonials, or like see what clients are saying, or something like that. Because like I get that once I start to read them, I get that it's a testimonial, but it's not immediately, I don't immediately know it's a testimonial. So that's another small thing. We're talking usability, right?
Yeah, and while we're on the topic, if you could just stay up one little dot, go to that purple bar. While we're on the topic of local, of course, on the left here it says where we go. Service area includes zip codes, and she's got her 5. Is that powerful? Is that the best way in that area to say that?
People probably are not searching for zip codes. I'm assuming people don't search zip in pet sitting. I would put the towns, and I would put the towns, to be honest with you, if it were me, because it just, let's see where this page goes. So coverage area, I like that. The map is nice. I get what they're trying to do, but the thing is that unless people are searching for zip codes, this isn't really helping, because you're telling Google zip codes, but people aren't searching for zip codes. So you're not telling Google, McAllister Park or Morgan's Wonderland. That looks like a business. But you're not telling Google all the places you're telling them zip codes. So I would focus on towns. I would think more cities, towns a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. One of the questions Michelle asked on our Facebook page was if we can briefly discuss the idea of a call to action, which I talk exhaustively on. What's your take on a proper call to action to get people to pick up the phone and call?
So if this slider wasn't here, what I would maybe consider as a design element more would be interested in a free consultation, a free pet sitting consultation, 10 minutes on the phone, and you will know whether I'm the right pet sitter for you.
I love that.
Bang, right on your homepage with your phone number, because like as we said here, for this website, you have to go all the way to the bottom of the page to find out what the phone number is. And that may seem like not a big deal, but if I'm looking for a pet sitter and I come here and I go, okay, I kind of like this, okay, all right, I'm here. Maybe I don't even make it down all the way to the bottom, right? So phone number should be on the top, even if it's built into the logo or whatever. I would just make a big box right here that would be like if you want a pet sitting consultation, you'll know in 10 minutes or whatever your shtick is, and the phone number, best way to get a hold of me is this phone number right here. Call today and we'll talk about your pet and if I can help you. The call to action is the ask, essentially. So if you're wondering what a call to action is, it is the ask. In the pet sitting industry, from what I've gotten from the commenters and from the Facebook community and from you, is that the phone number is the primary call to action. So you want to make it prevalent, prominent, and you want to let people know what they're going to get when they pick up. So if they call, they're going to get a 10-minute conversation as to whether or not you're the right pet sitter for them.
Right. Now, let's talk for a minute on the topic of local SEO. We're going to talk about the title tag for a minute, which we know is one of the strongest signals Google is looking for to help determine what's on that page. Michelle has on her homepage title tag is Wags and Purrs Pet Sitting, the separator, and then it says Woof and Meow spoken here. So right off the bat, we don't see and I know you're looking at her source code now, right off the bat in her title tag, she's missing an opportunity, right, to get in a town, an area, a location. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the other part is, so people who are watching can see, this is what Josh just read.
The title tag.
This is the title tag. So this is the actual text that Google is indexing in their database.
And show them where your, just point to that tab where you can see that, that tab right there is where the title tag.
You can also see it right there.
Right.
So that's what it looks. And I just went into the source code to make it easier and not a habit. But the other piece is the meta description for this page is pretty good. Pets are happier under their own roof.
Woof.
Wags and Woof,
under their own woof.
Wags and Purrs Pet Sitting is a pet care service that provides in-home care to cats and dogs in San Antonio. That's not bad. I would try to move this second sentence up to the front and the first sentence to the back. Because,
and let me reiterate, right, exactly, because this is going to appear, right, in the Google search result, potentially.
In the search. Right. So you want to make sure that you're getting all that, like the San Antonio, Texas part is kind of towards the end, and like you just don't want that to be all the way at the end. It may get cut off depending on how Google manipulates the results. You know, like it's the meta description is kind of a dynamic thing, so sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. So you want to make sure your important stuff is towards the front, and that's the important thing to do there. So keywords. So keywords, San Antonio, Texas, dog walking. So even in that, you could put San Antonio, Texas, and the surrounding areas. You could put San Antonio, Texas, and maybe 2 of the major other cities or townships or something like that. So, but I would also have San Antonio, Texas, pet sit up here in the title tag as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, without a doubt, because people, you're really helping Google put that pin on the map.
Right. Now let's go over to best at home pet sitting. Oh, there I am in. Okay. So here we have Sarah Barra's website. Thank you, Sarah, for submitting this one.
So the page might need to be updated a little bit just so it meets modern design standards. The actual usage of terms and stuff is not bad. The one thing I would do is this right here. We want to include the numbers as well. So 281-671 pets. Underneath it, have the 281-671, whatever the PETS, whatever those numbers are as well.
Now, is it good where she has right above that the serving humble and the comma separated location? Is that ideal?
It's not. Like, it's not ideal from the standpoint of it's definitely very ugly. Like, I don't mean to be harsh, but it's not appealing to the eye to see that. But it does tell Google the reasons that you're in. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it a best practice. I may take this and move it down towards the bottom a little bit. Like you already have it here, caring for pets in Humble Kingswood. You have all those towns right here, so you don't really need it there. I would put a call to action here. Best at home pet sitting because your pets do the best at home. Call us today for a free consultation. Bang.
Mm-hmm.
That simple.
Right.
This probably does not need to be there since you already have it down here, and the site isn't super deep, and what I mean by that, there aren't a lot of pages.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that for what it is, not doing things terribly wrong, using the right terminology. I'm just scanning through this here.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing is there's no blog feature, so I'm assuming it's hard to keep this fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Testimonials, 2010 testimonials, probably want to update that. Actually, definitely want to update that. There's no blog feature. I like that you're linking out to relevant sites, to local communities. That's great. Basically, the site, I would say in general, just needs to be updated. This doesn't look like it's on WordPress. Maybe it is.
It's not.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not. So you want to update this to WordPress, only because it's inexpensive relatively, and it's going to help you stay relevant for the longest period of time, and you need to have a blog feature to stay fresh. But I would say in general, the general doing things right, I like the understanding of using the right terminology, but definitely need to give people a more modern look. Like, when you look at Wags and Purrs, and then you look here, if these two sites are competing, just the fact that it looks like this person takes their business more seriously, I would choose Wags and Purrs. And I don't mean that as a knock. It just, this site versus this site, knowing nothing about the individuals as business people, this looks like, hey, I take my business very seriously, I put time into this, I put thought into this, and this looks like I haven't updated since 2010. So
Right, and I will say, ironically enough, Sarah has been telling us for months that she is booked solid through Labor Day. So
yeah,
she entered the summer with a full plate and entered the summer saying, I have to, on my voicemail, say, thanks for calling. Sorry, we are not taking any new clients until after Labor Day.
yeah. So, and that's because, like I said, this site is doing a lot of things right. It's just the next level. Like if someone in her hometown starts a competing business, and she's going to lose some leads to a more updated site that maybe is doing things a little different. But I would say in general, she's not doing things wrong. I just think it needs an updating, a facelift, a
Mm-hmm.
blog feature to stay relevant, because things could change. Google could say, hey, pages with, sites with less than 10 pages, we're just not going to rank anymore, because, or if you're not staying up to, I mean, I don't know that that's coming down the pipe, but that could happen. So
Sure.
that's what I would say. But not doing things wrong. Neither site is doing things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No major glaring things. I hope both of the owners of these sites take these things as very small, nitpicky,
Exactly.
small things, because in the grand scheme, though they look very different as far as more modern, less modern, they're doing things right in many, many ways. So they should be
Right.
very happy.
And that's what I always say. If you want to, we can jump back on Faceline here.
Yeah.
And I'll make the comment. That's what I always, I'll let you get. There you are. That's what I always tell pet sitters. Like this morning on our Facebook group, we were having in part a discussion about the SEO plugin and whether somebody should use Yoast or All-in-One. She says, hey, I currently have All-in-One SEO plugin. Should I change over to Yoast? And I said, well, how is your site currently operating? I need your bigger picture in order to make a recommendation, because nothing is going to be an end-all be-all. Nothing is going to be a blanket statement. So is your site operating wonderfully? Are you getting clients? Are you getting calls? Are you getting email? Are you getting feedback? Or is it a deserted land?
Yeah.
If it's a deserted land, then yes, let's take a look. Maybe there is something to be said to switching plugins, but you don't just need to switch because others are doing it. You have to look at your big picture. Like Ryan said, he's giving feedback on Sarah's site, and I jumped in and said, hey, and by the way, she's booked solid for months. And like he also reiterated, these are just small next level steps. So you have to see your big picture. Go ahead, Ryan.
Everything that we've talked about today, if you're doing 50% of it, you're on the right track, right? Like, this is all the things that you could potentially do. There's nobody that does all the things they can do. It's looking to say, hey, I want to rank for this particular town. I'm going to do some things to rank for that town. Or, hey, I see that I'm not really using the language that I want. I'm going to adjust that thing. Or, it's little tiny things. Or I don't have my phone number on every page. Like, it's little things. Doing these little things over time will get you to where you want to be. There's no be-all, end-all. Things are constantly changing, but we've talked about a lot of good stuff today, and I think that if you do 50% of the stuff we talked about today, you'll be successful.
That's right, and we are going to wrap it up because we're a little bit over the 1 hour mark, which is, like Ryan said, gives you solid stuff. Remember earlier, you're going to want to go back, and maybe it's the next thing you want to do. Just pick 1 or 2 of these things to focus on, and you'll be in phenomenal shape. I want to reiterate that Ryan is, in fact, going to be joining us live and in Las Vegas. Yep. I am psyched. He's going to be tying up the pieces with Marcus, with Jared, with Ryan. They are going to hit a grand slam, so to speak. Yes. What would you like to leave us with, Ryan?
Nothing. Just don't get overwhelmed by I say nothing and then I say something.
No, right. Leave us with nothing.
I'm an amazing orator. Let me tell you that. Just take these things in chunks, right? Like it sounds so overwhelming, and I know when I first got involved in Marigo, I told you, like, I've made all these mistakes. The only reason that I have the knowledge that I have today is because, one, I said, I'm going to work on getting better at this, but I've made all the mistakes. I didn't put Albany, NY, and I got phone calls from Oregon and Georgia for a while, and like, you learn these things over time. So just take little bits, like you said, maybe it's the next thing this month, and next month you're going to attack
Google reviews.
Yeah, and the next month. And just steadily build them into your workflow. And 6 months from now, you will have a well-performing site that is getting you the leads you need to grow your business. And that's the most important thing.
That's phenomenal. And the one thing I want to leave us with, which I'm going to throw right back to you to wrap us up, I know within a couple of weeks at least, or at most, you have your book being published, printed, and shipped across the land. I say this because we are fans. We are on board to secure. We have already secured 25 hardcover copies. Yes. We'll figure out later what we're going to do with those copies.
We'll make them rain.
Exactly. Give us a quick insight into what your book is and how all that's going.
Content warfare, how to find your audience, tell your story, and win the battle for attention online. It is the nuts and bolts of getting people's attention, the right people's attention, and turning those people into revenue. It's kind of like the every man, every woman's content marketing guide, right? This isn't how a Fortune 500 company ranks, and the examples and case studies that I share are not mega businesses. These are the everyday business, the mid and small size business, the solopreneur, and the things that we need to do to win that battle, to get people looking at our brand. It's all the kind of little things that we talked about. And a lot of, I don't want to say the emotional side of it, but there is a kind of psychological battle that we go through creating content, and it's a lot of stories around how we kind of defeat our own demons in content creation.
Well, that is amazing. Like I said, we've secured 25 copies. They are being printed as we speak. We look forward to them. We'll be giving them out to our friends, family, fans, and community along the way. For now, if you are not on the Ryan Hanley bandwagon like I am, like many others are, step over to ryanhanley.com, put some time aside because he's got plenty of insight on his website, on his Google Plus page. He's got podcasts. He's in our community. Thanks for always stopping by and saying a few words. On that note, I want to thank you for spending your day and time with us today. You know where to find me. We'll keep the conversation going. As always, life is short. Life is great. Be kind to each other, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.